having a seat. We'll start our program this evening. I'll also mention while you're kind of getting seated that there's a purse underneath one of the chairs back there, so somebody might have left their purse when they migrated from the table to the seats up front. Okay, so of course we're delighted to have Steve Dorff with us. I'm not the man who's going to introduce Steve Dorff. I'm going to introduce the man who's going to introduce Steve Dorff. But in reality, the person who I'm going to introduce in Athens, Georgia, does not need an introduction. And that's Coach Vince Dooley, who's with us here this evening to do that. And so since I don't need to introduce him as way you all know him in many other aspects, I'll introduce him as a member of the library's Board of Visitors and a long-term supporter of the University of Georgia Libraries, the founder of the Dooley endowment that supports so much of what we do here at the library. And I'll introduce him as a historian who has published a book on the papers of Confederate soldier William Delaunay, using the papers of here in the Hargrett Library. So that those may be things about Coach Dooley that you don't know. So without further ado, please.
Okay, thank you, Toby. And I will give you just a brief introduction of our speaker. And I've got an interesting history because we met. He reminded me of this. We were judges together at America's Junior Miss in Mobile. And then we somehow reconnected because he has been in Nashville. I guess Nashville is his second home, so to speak. And we were going up to play Vanderbilt in Nashville. And so we worked it out that we would get together. So we ended up with his older son, Stephen, who I guess was only about 10 at the time. And so they came to the pregame meal and had the pregame meal with us, and then sat on the bench for the ball game. And then I remember going out to California, and he introduced me to Hank Williams' son. Is that right? Yeah. But I wasn't worried about Junior. I liked Hank Williams. And he was my favorite growing up. I loved Hank Williams. But then to meet his son was quite a thrill. Again, not so much for Junior, but really the fact that this was the son of Hank Williams, who was kind of my country music hero. What he is, and he's going to tell you about his career. I do know that he was a graduate here in 1971, though I found out later that he came here to go to the vet school of all things, and then ended up in journalism, and then would constantly sneak out of journalism because he told me this, of going over by the Fine Arts building, I guess is where the music department was at the time, and finding a piano that he would play until somebody ran him out of the building. He wasn't supposed to be in there. But he's the greatest example of following your passion, of what he realized that he really loves to do, and he enjoys doing it. And instead of trying to do something that you really don't like too well, and you have to discipline yourself for it, but to be able to find what your passion is, he is a classic example of it. And his success has been songwriting, writing for movies, writing for television, writing for so many hits by so many artists that he'll tell you about. I'm going to let him tell you about that. He's been nominated so many times for awards, Emmys, and but the greatest thing, I had the privilege of him telling me that he's going to be inducted into the Writers Hall of Fame this June. And that was before he just got the word. So it hadn't been announced at the time. We were having lunch at the Rose Bowl, and then he told me that. It was a great deal of pride on his face, and I was happy for him. And it's interesting that also Bill Anderson, who came along 10 years before Steve at the journalism school here at Georgia, is also going to be inducted at the same time. Great artist, great friend, Steve Dorff.
That's an honor in itself, being introduced by Vince. And thanks, Coach. Yeah, I was here. I went to school here. I'm still trying to figure out how I got in with a 2.0 average. School was never my, especially high school was never my thing. I used to sit around all day and draw pictures of guitars and keyboards and Yankee Stadium. But my parents didn't want me playing for tips in a glass when I was 50. Of course, I have had some tips put in my glass. So I came to Georgia because they accepted me, and tried to sit in on some music classes along the way, but kept getting thrown out. But I had a great time here. A lot of fond memories. Still, some of my best friends in the world are guys I went to school with, and we still are very close and stay connected. And I come back here hopefully every year for a ball game. I've been back the last couple of years, and Deanna Dooley always hooks me up. And so anyway, it's great to be here. And I always say that my business is kind of a business of T's, the letter T: tenacity, talent, timing, too dumb for a real job. And the thing about being a songwriter, when you're not the performer, everybody knows who Elton John is and Billy Joel and the great singer-songwriters. Guys like me are more like anonymous Oz behind the curtain people that write the soundtrack of people's lives, and nobody ever knows who we are, which is good. I can go to restaurants and not get asked to have my picture taken. There are also amazing stories behind all these songs. Every story kind of has its own life and its own journey. I'm going to play this first song. Was originally recorded by the late, great Karen Carpenter. And Karen did this incredible version. And I went to the studio to listen to it. And, Richard Carpenter put his arm around me and he said, "Steve, this is a great song. It's going to make the album. It's not going to be a single, but you'll be on the album." And I thought, fantastic. Came out, sold millions of copies. About a year and a half later, I got a phone call from the late, great Dusty Springfield, who I idolized. And Dusty said, "I heard your song on Karen's album, and because it wasn't a single, I decided to record it. It's going to be on my new album. It's not going to be a single, but it came out on Dusty's album, and Dusty sold 1 million records, I think. So I'm feeling pretty good about this song." And about a year and a half later, I get a call from Toronto, and Anne Murray says, "Yeah, I heard Dusty did your song and didn't put it out as a single, so we decided to record it. Came out great." it's not going to be a single. But a radio station in Buffalo, New York started playing it off the album, and it became Song of the Year. So I always like to thank Karen and Dusty and Ann for kind of making this happen. Dreaming, I must be dreaming, or am I really lying here with you? Baby, you take me in your arms, and though I'm wide awake, I know my dream is coming true. And oh, I just fall in love again. Just one touch and then it happens every time. And there I go, I just fall in love again. And when I do, I can't help myself, I fall in love with you. Magic, it must be magic, the way I hold you and the night just seems to fly. Easy for you to take me to a star. Heaven's in that moment when I look into your eyes. And oh, I just fall in love again. Just one touch and then it happens every time. And there I go, I just fall in love again. And when I do, I can't help myself, I fall in love. Just one touch and then it happens every time. And there I go, I just fall in love again. And when I do, I can't help myself, I fall in love with you. Can't help myself, I fall in love with you. I think most people think we just sit down and write these things like in the movies, and you see a guy, slamming his head against the piano bench, and then he's playing the song, and then 15 seconds later you see this big 60-piece orchestra playing it and the singer singing it. It doesn't work that way. Not even close. These things sometimes take years. I'll play you a song that's a great example of the fine line between dismal failure and beautiful success. This is a song I wrote with a good friend of mine, Eric Kaz, and we wrote this song and we thought, this would be a really cool song for like Boys to Men. Anybody remember that band? So we demoed it up like a Boys to Men track, and we were really happy with it. Nobody else was, but we were. And played it for everybody, and nobody seemed to. We kept getting the same response. It's okay, Steve, not one of your best. So I went in and re-demoed it with a female singer, thinking, let me give it another shot here, since we're striking out with this song everywhere. And she did a really nice version of it, and lo and behold, Bette Midler recorded it. She's not here today. The record was awful. It just wasn't the right marriage between a song and an artist. And to have a hit, I think you have to have that great marriage between a voice and a piece of music. So to her credit, Bette decided after a couple of weeks of trying to perfect it that it wasn't her thing. So she took it off the album and it never came out. And of course I went to 3 years of songwriter therapy to recover from that. And then I played this song for everybody I knew for the next 8 years. And everybody pretty much said the same thing. They looked at me and they said, Steve, it's nice, not one of your best. So I called my mother. And she loved everything I did, unconditionally. And I went over there and said, I want to play you a song. She said, oh, great. She said, but first, let me whip your butt in Scrabble. And so I had to play Scrabble with her, and she did beat me. And so I finally sat down and played her the song. And when I finished, I looked up, and she was just beaming. She said, not one of your best. Are there any country music fans here? Yeah. So I played this song for George Strait. And he said, not one of your best. But we talked him into doing it, and we had just a big, big #1 record with George. And it was voted 2 years ago by CMT, Country Music Television, as the 9th greatest country love song ever written. So yeah, that's what I said. I was still hung up on the Boyz II Men version. And I always like to thank Bette for not putting it out. Our love is unconditional, we knew it from the start. I see it in your eyes and you can feel it from my heart. From here on after, let's stay the way we are right now and share all the love and laughter that a lifetime will allow. I cross my heart and promise to give all I've got to give to make all your dreams come true. In all the world, you'll never find a love as true as mine. You will always be the miracle that makes my life complete. And as long as there's a breath in me, I'll make yours just as sweet. As we look into the future, it's as far as we can see. So let's make each tomorrow be the best that it can be. I cross my heart and promise to give all I've got to give to make all your dreams come true. In all the world, you'll never find a love as true as mine. And if along the way we find a day it starts to storm, you've got the promise of my love to keep you warm. true as mine. So the journey for that puppy was rough. And Mom, if you're listening, you were wrong. She wasn't wrong often, but she was wrong on that one. Well, I'm going to do a little medley of a couple of songs that I was blessed enough to be asked to write for motion pictures and film, which kind of came after. It's actually what I went to California to do. I always wanted to write music for visuals, because that was kind of, growing up, I had this weird thing called synesthesia. When I first found out from a psychologist friend of mine a couple of years ago what it was actually called, I asked him if I was going to die from it. He said, no, it's just a weird thing that happens to the senses. And whenever I would hear music and close my eyes, I would see these bubbles, these like plasma bubbles that were kind of like in a lava lamp. In fact, the first time I ever saw a lava lamp, I told my friend, I said, oh, someone finally figured out how to bottle those things. Because I'd been seeing them my whole life. So when I got to California and I started having some success, I got a few opportunities to write for film. And I'm going to do a little medley of some of the songs from some of the projects I got to do. And the great thing about these songs is the amazing artists that we were lucky enough to have record them. This first one was done by the late Eddie Rabbitt. I've always been the kind of man who doesn't believe in strings. Long-term obligations are just unnecessary things. But girl, you got me thinking while I'm drinking one more beer. If I'm headed for a heartache, then why the hell am I still here? While you're turning me every which way but loose, every which way but loose. Inside the fire's burning me, in my mind you just keep turning me every which way but loose. Baby, there's no excuse to turn me every which way but loose. So about the time that was a hit, I got a call from the man himself, Clint Eastwood, and he just said, I want to sing. And I thought to myself, yikes. Well, Clint, and of course I was thinking a mile a minute, thinking, oh my God, I hope he doesn't want to do a whole album. I said, why don't we get somebody to come in and do a duet with you? And that way we can have a hit single maybe, and then you're done. You can go back to making movies. So we dragged this guy in off the street. His name was Merle Haggard. And we had a #1 record. And Clint was very happy. We're barroom buddies, and that's the best kind. Nobody fools with a buddy of mine. I laugh when you're happy, and you cry when I'm blue. We're barroom buddies, we're doing fine. So pour me another, I got nothing but time. Chug-a-lug-a-luggin' barroom buddy of mine. We're skirt chasing, tail kicking, pool hustling, guitar picking, chug-a-lug-a-luggin' barroom buddy of mine. Of course, Clint wanted to do the skirt chasing line. This next one was done by the just recently passed great Mel Tillis. You're just a Coca-Cola cowboy. You got an Eastwood smile and Robert Redford hair, but you walked across my heart like it was Texas, and you taught me how to say I just don't care. One of my very favorite artists to ever record one of my songs is Ronnie Millsap, great singer, and he did this one for us. This was out of the movie Bronco Billy. Everybody loves cowboys and clowns. They're everybody's heroes for just a little while. But when the goodbyes are said and the spotlight goes dead, there's no one left who cares to hang around to love the cowboys and clowns. This was done by the amazing Glenn Campbell. Any which way you can, just love me any which way you can. My love's not the choking kind. You've got your life and I've got mine. So if you can never be free, darling, I'll understand. But when you're lying next to me, just love me any which way you can. So John Travolta and William Hurt and Andy McDowell are sitting around this roadside table in a movie called Michael. He had these big angel wings. Anybody remember that movie? Yeah. I get this call one night from a director, Nora Ephron, great director, and she says, I've been shooting this scene for 2 days and it's just not working. I need these people to sing. I go, great, what are they going to sing? She said, I don't know, you haven't written it yet. She asked me to write a song about pie. I told her I didn't really like pie. So I went to we didn't have computers then, or I don't even think we had the internet, so I went to the World Book. That dates me a little bit. I was 5. Looked up pie just to get some buzzwords, to get some idea what to write. I wrote this thing in about, 10 minutes. It's very short. Of course, I told them the next day that I slaved all night over it. Oh, that's the other thing. I said, when do you need it by? And she said 6:30 in the morning. So that's why I wrote it in 10 minutes so I could get some sleep. And it goes like this. Pie, pie, me, oh my. Nothing tastes sweet, wet, salty, and dry, all at once as well as pie. Apple, pumpkin, mince, and black bottom. I'll come to your place every day if you got 'em. Pie, me, oh my, I love pie. When I got my first check, my first royalty check for that, it was astounding. I almost wanted to send it back because it was so stupid, but I didn't. So I get this other call. We get a lot of calls in this crazy business, and to go see a pilot, which is a 22 minutes actually of a brand new TV show that they're trying to get on the air. And so I went over to Warner Brothers Studios and met with the 3 producers, and they said, "Hey, Steve, go into this screening room. We don't want to put any pressure on you. Watch the show, and then come back out and we'll talk about the music." I said, "Great." So I go into the screening room and watch the 22 worst minutes of television I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was cheesy. So I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to say? You know, can I call my agent and try to get out of this? I go into the meeting with the 3 producers, and they go, "Hey, what'd you think?" And "Hey, yeah, it was on the screen. It was there." So the first guy says, "You know, I worked with John Sebastian on Welcome Back, Kotter, and would really love it if you could kind of get some of those stylings of John on there in their theme song." And I said, "Well, yeah, he's great. I don't play the auto harp, but I'll see what I can do." And the second guy just looked at me and Pat Metheny, love Pat Metheny. Okay, well, jazz guitar meets John Sebastian. Okay. Third guy just looks at me and says, "Latin percussion." So I got out and I said, "Okay, well, let me wrap my head around that and see what I can come up with." And I went home and took a nap. I was actually meeting a friend. We were going to work on a song that we were really excited about that day. And I said to him, I said, "John," his name was John Bettis, and I said, "You know, John, I got to write this thing for this TV show. It's never going to go anywhere." I give him a 25-word or less synopsis of the show, and he just starts writing, scribbling down something like he was writing the Pledge of Allegiance, and he stuck it in front of me, literally in 3 minutes. And I looked at it and started plunking around. And we wrote this thing in about 10 minutes. And I called the 3 guys the next day and said, "Man, I've never worked so hard on a piece of music." They came over, they wanted to hear it. And then as I was about ready to play it for them, I realized this has nothing to do with what they asked for. So I started to panic, but I played it and I got through it. And I was afraid to look up. They were all standing right here. I did. I looked up and they were all smiling, and they all said, "That's exactly what we wanted." Show me that smile again. Don't waste another minute on your crying. We're nowhere near the end. The best is ready to begin. Ooh, as long as we got each other, we got the world spinning right in our hands. Baby, you and me, we gotta be the luckiest dreamers who never quit dreaming. As long as we keep on giving, we can take anything that comes our way. Baby, rain or shine, all the time, we got each other, sharing the laughter and love. And for those of you who don't remember, where did that come from? It was a show called Growing Pains. And it ran for 8 years, which shows how much I know about network television. So, yeah, that was kind of my little tour through TV and film. There were a lot of others that I was fortunate enough to be asked to do. I got to do Murder, She Wrote, and I got to do Columbo, and Spencer for Hire, and Murphy Brown, which is coming back this fall. Candace Bergen is coming back 20 years later as Murphy Brown on CBS. And I'm still waiting for them to call me to see if I'm going to do the music. I'm going to do, I'll do one more for you. favorite story about this song is that a lot of people passed on it. A lot of people passed on it. Lionel Richie got a hold of it and loved it. And Lionel called me and said, I'm going to cut this. I love this song. Well, somewhere between Lionel doing it and it finally getting to the radio, a whole bunch of things happened. And I write about it in my book. I've heard the story about 5 different ways. So I just took a bunch of different parts from all the 5 ways that I heard it and stuck it into one that, because I don't think I'll ever truly know the real story. Everybody has a different recollection, but my favorite way of telling it is that Lionel was over at Kenny Rogers' house, and Kenny was looking for songs for his next album, and they were having trouble. Lionel was playing him songs, and Kenny just wasn't liking anything. And Lionel pulled this song out. He said, "Well, let me play you something that I really like, that could be the right direction. If you like this song, I'm going to record it. But if you like this song, we can try to find songs that are in the similar vein, for you to do." So Kenny said, "Great." So, somewhere through the first chorus, Kenny's wife at the time, Mary Ann Rogers, his 12th or 13th wife at the time, came walking through the, she's not here tonight, came walking through the living room and went over to Kenny and said, "Kenny, you're doing this song." So Lionel and Kenny had a little tug of war. Kenny outweighed Lionel by about 400 pounds. I got the best of both worlds, Lionel Richie producing it on Kenny Rogers. It just went over 5 million broadcast performances at BMI, which they tell me if you played it 5 million times consecutively, it would take 12 and a half years to finally get sick of it enough to turn it off. I can't remember when you were there, when I ever cared for anyone but you. I swear we've been through everything there is. I can't imagine anything we missed. Can't imagine anything the two of us can't do. Through the years, you never let me down. You turned my life around. The sweetest days I found with you. Through the years, I've never been afraid. I love the life we made, and I'm so glad I stayed right here with you through the years. I can't remember what I used to do, who I trusted, who I listened to before. I swear you taught me everything I know. Can't imagine needing someone so, but through the years it seems to me I need you more and more. Through the years, through all the good and bad, I knew how much we had. I've always been so glad to be with you. Through the years, it's better every day. You kissed my tears away, and as long as it's okay, I'll stay with you through the years. Through the years, when everything anybody's got any questions, or I'd be happy to try to answer. Yes?
I just have a comment, Steve. I wanted to say how much I loved your book, and I'm glad you just explained about the bubbles, because I did not get that in the book, the bubbles in your brain that you saw.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's called synesthesia.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was. I just assumed everybody had it.
Well, the book was fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. Yes, ma'am.
A comment, and your songs are so beautiful. Are you married?
Oh, she's married.
Your songs are so beautiful. I love a wife that you thought about when you wrote these songs, or girlfriend, somebody.
Not really. No, I'm not married. I've been married twice. That's another story for another day. No, it's actually in my book. Both of them, yeah. Horses and divorces. No, you know, I frequently asked question is, where do the songs come from? And the inspiration is, for me, generally from personal relationships, not necessarily my ex-wives. But no, you know, it's just everyday life, disappointments, the roller coaster, the ups and downs.
Are you still actively working? Are you still writing?
God, I hope so. Yeah, yes, I am.
I do too.
Yeah, I am. Thank you. Yeah, I just finished a new song that Barbara Streisand is recording next month, and for her new album, and I have a show hopefully going to Broadway next year called Josephine. It's the Josephine Baker story. And yeah, I've got a couple other things coming out. I can't remember what they are, but yeah, I've got 2 teenage daughters, so I'll be working for a long time. Yeah.
Where do you live?
Los Angeles, California. Yes, sir.
A songwriter, you're doing the lyrics and the music. Do you have? You said some collaboration. I mean, but you know.
I do the music, and I write a lot of the lyrics, but I work with some amazing lyricists that I collaborate with. So the words are usually the tough part for me.
So how does it work? You talked about waiting for CBS to call you on Murphy Brown. Can you or your agent, call them?
Oh yeah. No, I was kind of half kidding. I kind of half kid about everything, but no, I just I had heard through the grapevine that it was coming back, and Diane English, who created Murphy Brown, and I did every episode for 10 seasons, is trying to bring back the old team and those of us who are still alive, and so I fully expect to get that call. Thank you.
So will you comment on Spotify, Pandora, and what that's doing to the music business?
Making us all go broke. No, it's, the advent of the internet has affected every business, I think, in good ways and in bad. Certainly songwriters are at the bottom of the food chain. The artists get paid first, and then the publishers and the songwriters, and streaming and piracy and things like Spotify have greatly reduced the royalty pool that come to us. The good news is that downloads, on iTunes are being paid now like singles, and but you still, you have to, physical sales are way down. So unless you get on an artist like a Garth Brooks or a Barbra Streisand, you're not gonna sell millions of albums anymore. I mean, the biggest album I've ever been on was Whitney Houston, and that sold 23 million copies, and that's just not going to happen again. So, yes.
So how many times have you worked with like a Barbra Streisand? Once you were with an artist, I would imagine that they...
Yeah, this will be my 4th with Barbara. And I wrote Higher Ground for her, which was the title of her inspirational album. And that was my first with her. I survived it.
Who would be the most difficult person you work with?
I can't answer that. They're filming this. Yeah, you know, every artist brings their own gift and artistry to the songs. But if you read the book, you might get the answer to that question. Yes.
What does it mean, the difference is when, during those 8 years where everybody turned you down, said the song wasn't any good, what's the difference between when they would say, well, I'm not going to do a single of this?
Well, they recorded it. So you're on the album, and you know with the Carpenters and with Dusty and with Ann, you're going to sell a meaningful amount of physical product, of CDs or of albums, and because they were huge artists and they were selling millions of copies each.
So that was good for you, actually.
Oh, it was great, but
Right.
getting a single, getting on the radio is where that's where the real royalty income stream.
Did any of those people who said the song was no good send you a letter of congratulations?
No. No, I could tell you, George told me one time, and I can say this, I'll keep the 4-letter words out of it, but George said, Steve, there's too many damn chords in that bridge. He says, it's not what I do. And then, of course, he had this gigantic hit. I think we were #1 for 6 weeks. And the movie, you know, Pure Country, you know, we sold 8 million albums, and we were at the BMI Awards going up to get an award. And no, it was at the CMT Awards when we got voted the 9th greatest country love song ever written. And he leaned over to me and he said, there's still too many damn chords in that bridge.
No respect.
So, yes.
I guess my question is the opposite of what was the most difficult of your collaborations. What brought more bubbles into a relationship that you would have with the performing artist of a work that you created?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
What was do you have any collaborations that are just favorites?
Yeah. Anne Murray is amazing. She's recorded 11 of my songs over the years, and Celine, I did a record with Celine called Miracle. It was her lullaby album, and that was maybe the most incredible vocal performance ever on a song that I've written. And the bubbles were in high gear that day. Yeah. Yes.
I understand that you used to be a big Beatle fan when you were growing up.
I still am, yeah.
And at one point, you actually worked with George Martin.
I did. I got to work with George on a movie called Hunky Tonk Freeway. I did the title song with the Little River Band, and George and I co-produced it. And that was one of the 3 greatest honors ever, and just to work with him. And we got to be friends. And one time I was over in England, and he invited me over to his studio for tea, and we were having tea, and I noticed under a piece of glass was the string quartet to Eleanor Rigby, and I'm going, God, he uses this as a placemat. Yeah, I'd kill to have that, you know. And he was amazing. And then I got to work with Ringo on a John Hughes movie called Curly Sue, and I wrote the end title song for Ringo. It was called You Never Know, and that was so surreal. Getting to, you know, the first time I pushed the talkback button down and said, can you sing that again, Ringo? I thought, what? What did I just say? Yeah. It was pretty crazy.
Do you have in your book, do you have a list of all the songs, or can we go somewhere and find all?
There's a discography at the end of the book, and most of the great stories like Ringo and Murphy Brown and how these situations happen. You know, I always say my career has been a pinch me career from the very beginning. You know, I've always operated with trying to be at the right place at the right time, because that's so much of how you make your own luck. But manifest destiny, in my case, has kind of followed me through. It's been a real blessing. And
was there somebody here at UGA that recognized maybe your talent?
no, they threw me out of every music class I tried to find. But that started in my mother tried giving me piano lessons when I was 10, and that didn't work out too well either. So I
But somebody must have sort of helped you a little bit. So you think a mentor? I mean,
well, when I first started writing songs and taking them to publishers, the first publishers that signed me, one guy gave me $35 a week to write songs for him, and then in Atlanta, I guess I can say this now. I won't get thrown out of school now. I was cutting classes to go to Atlanta. A guy named Bill Lowry, who was the big publisher in Atlanta, signed me, and so I was writing for him. And that was kind of the beginning, just writing and throwing them up against the wall and being rejected left and right. And that's the way it happens. Yes?
How do you find life in LA?
Traffic. I've lived there for 40-something years, so it's just, it's one of.
Where do you go to get away?
Hawaii, Maui, good place. But I travel a lot. I go to New York a lot, and Nashville a lot. I work a lot in Tennessee, and so I'm bouncing around a bit. Well, thanks very much. Oh yeah.
Still play the Boys and Men version of that voice?
Probably not. Probably not. I've gotten so used to now George doing it, and I've kind of put the other ones out of my mind. That it was meant to be. It just took a little bit of time. Actually, he recorded another one of my songs that we had a big hit with called "A Man in Love with You," and that went #1, and that was 11 years after I had it recorded by Dottie West, who did it. She didn't sing "The Man in Love with You." She sang "I'll Always Be the Woman in Love with You," and George, I changed things around and played for him, and he did that. And I just had a hit last year on a song that I wrote in 2001. A friend of mine called me up, Ken Blasey, that I wrote it with, and he said, "Hey, I've got some really good news for you. Call me back." So I called him back, and he said, I said, "What's up?" He said, "Garth cut our song." I said, "Garth who?" I said, "Garth Brooks." I said, "What song?" He said, "Lay Down and Dance." I said, "What? Lay Down and Dance?" I said, "What is that?" I didn't even remember writing it. So I went back and started listening through my old demo library, and there it was. And I played it, and I went, "Shit, all right." And we had a top 10 record with it last year. So you can't give up on these things sometimes. Anything else? Yes.
Congratulations on your Songwriter Hall of Fame.
Oh, thank you very
That's
much.
great.
Yeah, that was just announced, and it's going to be an incredible event, June 14th. John Mellencamp and Kool and the Gang and Bill Anderson, Alan Jackson, Jermaine Dupri, and myself are all going in. So it's.
How many people do you get to invite?
I get 3 comps. That's it. Me and my 3 kids, and it's pretty pricey dinner from what I hear. So, but it's supposed to be a blast. Everybody in the world is there, and it's just it's beyond belief that I look at the list of people in there, so many heroes and people I admire and look up to and have listened to my whole life, and to think It's crazy. It's crazy.
Where will it be?
New York City.
Will they have people singing the songs? I mean,
Yeah, they have each inductee will have 2 of their songs performed by one of the artists that, and then I'll do one. And I'm not sure who they're going out to. They're going to surprise me. They tell me. So, we'll see. Yes.
Are any of your children interested in your field of work?
All of them. Yeah, I can't escape it. Yeah.
did you say you did it with Whitney Houston?
I did. I wrote "Take Good Care of My Heart" was a duet with Jermaine Jackson, which is a great story. I was going to do that today, but I could do a chorus of it, I think. But the story is better than the song.
Read it in the book.
And well, it goes, "Take good care of my heart." No, that's not it. Take good care of my heart. Take good care of my heart. Baby, you're the first to take it. You're the only one who could break it. I love you more than I should, but it keeps me feeling so good. I waited for your love forever. You're the one to take good care of my heart. I sound just like Whitney, don't I? Thank you all for coming, really.
So what a treat that was. I mean, that was absolutely fabulous. And Steve, we thank you so much. We congratulate you on your induction and on the tremendous book. And speaking of which, we have the good folks from the University of Georgia Bookstore back here that have copies of Steve's book on sale. And I believe you've agreed to stay and sign copies for us. So please stay and take advantage of that. We have our reception as well. But again, thanks to Coach Dooley. Thank you, Steve, and thanks to all of you all for being here with us. And one more round of applause for Steve Dorff.